We are the reality distortion fielding. Good gray. Us. Us. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Us. We are the reality distortion fielding. Our top story remains Donald Trump remains at large. However, another important story has garnered attention. What are we talking about? Human rights atrocities. Unfold from Gregg Abbott's command. People don't attempt to come back under clouds of suspicion. Having committed betrayal, saying I've done nothing wrong, meaning to do the opposite of what they did before. People don't attempt to come back under clouds of Let's try that again. People don't attempt to come back under clouds of committed betrayal, saying I've done nothing wrong, meaning to do the opposite. Someone who comes back to where they've abused people, saying I did nothing wrong, doesn't mean to have changed their ways, has not changed their ways, and we should not expect them to have done so. We should be able to. But it is really not on the table. It is the capricious nature of hokum, of the difficulty of pulling together streams and coming out of hypervigilance to know that doing one thing at a time, in fact, is fast enough. People don't attempt to come back under clouds of committed betrayal saying, I've done nothing wrong, meaning to do the opposite. Donald Trump is not coming back to foster democracy. He's coming back to finish what he did before. And the confession is that he says he's done nothing wrong. Human rights atrocities unfold from Gregg Abbott's command. In Texas, the specter of abject stupidity and outright antichrist malice has hold of a Ku Klux Klan compromised governor. Whatever incredible trauma broke Gregg Abbott, Governor Gregg Abbott is committing human rights atrocities in the name of patriotism in America and border security, supposedly. The Antichrist level malice and reality distortion fields are simply disturbing as hell. He is a murderer. And it's the responsibility of the President of the United States to assure that the watch is clear. And this kind of pernicious Ku Klux Klan terrorism as state-sponsored police state death borders and patriarchal terror, this is completely unacceptable. It is time to mess with Texas. It is time to do so peacefully, and for Texas to stand the mother falcon down. How is it that MAGA is able to fool themselves so easily? How is MAGA so easily fooled, and how are they so easily fooled by themselves? It's pathetic. What broken soul says that they follow Jesus Christ and would point across a border and say, but not them? No, across the border, they're not my neighbor, they're not human. No, across the border, across the line of this caste, across the line of this race, across the line of this class, across the line of this border, across a class, acrostic of loss. To see subbed gift swallowed whole by the corrupt. we are looking at the vanguard of Project 2025. We are looking at the Ku Klux Klan, and we are looking at the Nazis, the Nazi Party, in whatever permutation of Ku Klux Klanery and Proud Boy deprivation, depravity, and devastation. We're dealing with the cancer of white terrorist fire, the cancer of white fire. There was writing some time ago, decades past, about the black problem, I think, or the Negro problem, then it was called, in language of a bygone era. And really what we've been dealing with all along, but not dealing with, is the white problem. The white problem is the inability and training against self-regulation, that white people are not subject to regulate ourselves to other people, that white people get to be terrorists and be holy, that is part of patriarchal terror of white supremacy. And the horrors that Gregg Abbott is visiting upon humankind through an elected office is abomination. To use razor wire on borders in this manner is murder. I'm calling New Colossus on all of us now upon the ominous and obvious collapse, almost eponymous, and yet we are the omnibus, and we must now uncorrupt. We must now raise again the beacon, the safe beacon, bisected flame, with bandwidth laid down and bandwidth above the crown. This is the bandwidth blaze that burns no one around. This is the madness of love, to confound hate. From the sound up, this roundup pounds love. Its vibration must resound. This kindness came to play today. This kindness came and made you say, what way did this voice come, and how geeked out and stupid-whack and something I did not expect quite that to happen like that fact happened. It's not quite practiced, but is it not stacked, this thing? I just contracted this? Good gosh, I blacked out and blacked in, and I'm blackness. Am I blackness? Are we all blackness? If we came from Africa originally, are we not part of humanity? Of one empathness? I'm light beige. And I won't turn White's page from the knowledge of my rage made safer from cages. But if we have white privilege, if we have privilege, then that's a resource we can use for the forces of good. Dealing with human rights atrocities like unfold from Governor Gregg Abbott's corrupt, bigoted command. One wonders if Jesus is heralded in Christianity anymore. One wonders what the body and the blood were for, if the kindness of all kinds of prophets could give different versions of different golden rules as kits that we could list and Gesundheit. Sneeze times. If we could eclipse how many wise lips have told us just use fingertips like you'd like to be gripped with fingertips, and we can all keep those tips. Like, let's get good in this. Get better at this, but we can be good together. It's not actually that difficult to be good to one another. Yes, it's incredibly difficult in some ways at times, but largely it's not that difficult to be good to one another. We are acculturated to look for higher ground to attack because capitalism that capitalizes upon human need and vulnerability demands you have stolen something before someone else has stolen something from you. The Kodak of American capitalism promoted poisoned wool blankets. The Kodak of American capitalism has corruption and rot that need not. We do not need to capitalize upon human need and vulnerability, but for an addiction to punishment. And Gregg Abbott is an addict. Governor Gregg Abbott is an addict to terroristic punishment. A corrupt, terroristic, wrong version of God is to blame, potentially. Or some trauma without a name, or with a name maybe Gregg Abbott might have in his frame. But good anything. This is totally unacceptable. This is barbarism. This is Nazi bullshit being normalized. And the answer is no. It is time for the new Colossus to wake up. I'm calling New Colossus.
until they're manifested in time. You are the brain. Wake, radio science break. Of what you're to become. You are the resonation. Every brain to all brains, all fields and all exclaims. Radio science brain, panel of idioms. We are the all sentience. We are the radiation. Parallel against pain. Parallel against haste. Stations parallel against pain. Radio science brain. You are the generation of IDN blaze made for the bandwave that yet makes wax from wane. It is innate and genius with or without a penis. What I actually mean is you are the radiation. You have access to genius, access to unadulterated creativity. You are a power-free ascension one, a science floating in a flight for your freight song. You are ascension freight made up by yourself every day. You are the resonation of what you're becoming, coming from what you're thinking. You are the resolution. You are the resonation of the love inside you that you know can become. Resonation. Perpendicular trails, parallel against hate, parallel against pain. Parallel against hate, permeate against pain. Parallel against hate, parallel against pain. You are the generation of the idea maze, against walls and mazes. You're a laser phases. Read out player played this. Please now play to this. You are the radiation. Gifted. On the brain. You are the resonation of your imagination. You are the resolution of love's imagination. Parallel against hate, parallel against pain. Radio science brain, radio science brain, radio ideation and illumination.
This is the mindness assembling. This is the mindness. What is this place? Yes. This is the mystery font. I am having an episode. This is an episode. I'm having an episode of Mystery Font 42 Ope Intuit. Good gray. Shh. Us. America cannot depend upon the falsehood. Radio science brain is different every time. If we care not to be prey to predator, I suggest instead we may be play today and always. Emancipatriate thine wave. Particularly you save everything that you crave. Through the rain from all brains we might behave, just like tidal wave, made sane, made brave. Radio science brain, radio science brain. This is the mindness makes me this way. Particularly now I say, radio science brain, since we can do anything, the scarcity myths ending, why would we totalitarianism now at last bring? This is what I'm thinking. I'm calling New Colossus because colossal things come from colossal thinkers, and we are such brinkers. We are not drinkers except that we want to sink. If we think we won't be heard, if we think our beacon won't link. We are torturing ourselves by believing scarcity myth to death, when we might instead newly ink belief in the new Colossus and the illumination. The imagination of democracy is accessible to all. We are the mindness. And the invitation to illumination is to the entire sentience, the entire human race. We may not all live here, but we are partnered across time and space with humanity. And that's part of what's happening here. We've had many prophets and leaders and exemplars of why we want to treat one another as we want to be treated, why we would love our neighbor as we love ourselves. You don't have to be a fan or a follower of Jesus to recognize, hopefully, from not terribly many degrees of separation, that there was something of kindness to the mission of Christ. And as Christian nationalism, this perversion of Christ's mission so ruptures and betrays Christ, it is important to look at the relation of this rupture and this betrayal to something, to some fog, and to some one that we all know by the thousands of calling cards left all over, not just the nation, but the planet. Everywhere we turn, there seems to be yet another calling card of the pernicious, greedy, damage-ridden, falsehood? Who is the falsehood? We haven't had so many images this clear. But since it's likely Donald Trump, the falsehood is seen replacing or vanishing from at this moment, it's never really that easy to know what fragment of the fragment we're supposed to behold as any part of the falsehood themselves. Could a master of disguise and potentially even time travel and space and time not do anything? Why would they let us see something? It must just be another false thread to follow. What is the relationship between the fog of this era of falsehood that has been dawned upon us and, yes, it seems to be true, the rumor of one who has donned the centuries dormant cowl of the falsehood? Some say the actual falsehood hasn't been seen for 3 centuries. Some believe the falsehood last was worn by Adolf Hitler. Some say he wasn't even as terrible as the last person to wear the falsehood. It's not to minimize the horrors and atrocities of the Holocaust, but to say it's been even darker on Earth before. These are some of the rumors associated, as we all know, with the millennia's long path of the winding tale of the occasional and deadly dawning of the falsehood. But people have been saying that the falsehood may be dawning. That an age in which it is wise to be unwise. An age in which facts are not factual, actually. An age in which betrayal trauma is constant. Simply wraps around us like our own finger wrapping around our own windpipe. Why can we not see the water temperature rising? Why can we not see in our field of perceptions? Why can we not perceive that we have been in an abusive relationship, an individual abusive relationship, all of us at once, all having an abusive relationship with the falsehood? Who has donned the falsehood? We may never know. It's almost impossible to consider what devilish figure might be responsible for dawning an age when we have accepted it's not worth finding the facts because trust has been shattered. We have been horribly abused and degraded by someone conducting narcissistic, dark triad betrayal trauma on us. It is time to pick ourselves up off of the mat and realize that he doesn't want to have a beer with us. We're the mash. It's not safe to continue dealing with dark triad predators in government or positions of authority. There has been an all-out race to power by diabolical, and if evil exists, evil people. It's not just in the GOP, but MAGA has essentially been taken over by the Ku Klux Klan. It is essentially, it has always been the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis working to break through for one last gasp. The answer is no. We don't accept razor wire on borders. No. We don't accept ignoring hundreds of school shootings and gravitating superstitiously to peaceful, kind, germane readings by people who happen to be in drag. What kind of nonsense are we doing while Rome burns? It's idiotic. We have been, all of us, the victims of traumatic brain injury because abuse causes brain damage. Going through COVID, which has not completed, by the way, but going through lockdown and associated betrayal traumas of coming out of that, which still continue, that alone would have, that has to be part of slow COVID, is that this is also incredibly traumatic for us. If not part of it, it's on top of it. We're going through trauma. We haven't processed that January 28th, 2020, President Trump already knew enough to shut down the borders for travel to seal off America from getting COVID. He could have stopped it or made deaths in the hundreds rather than over 1 million in America alone. That was either incompetence or it was volition. We cannot depend upon the falsehood. It was either incompetence or volition that made the falsehood fail to help us. Some have even theorized maybe Donald Trump knows the identity of the falsehood. Maybe some have even said, and this is wow, but possibly Donald Trump has told a few lies. It seems, I mean, not all of these lies that have been pointed out have always been then duly attributed to the falsehood, and then, you know, we move on about our day. So often, you know, the recently embroiled in scandal Menendez or Santos, you know, so often we'll find out that some of the lies that they've told actually were committed by the falsehood. It wasn't them who said it. It wasn't Marjorie Taylor Greene who tried to foment a lynch mob upon a fellow congressperson. That was the falsehood. We all understand this. It happens so often. The falsehood's calling card is everywhere. The question is, what kind of crazy hocus pocum? What kind of hokum socus in him? What kind of hokum are we soaking in? We don't seem to know where the edge of it goes. And is any part of this a movie? And are we at least getting exposure? Or do we get to know what we're being exposed to? Or is this going on IMDb? And if we all die because the habitat literally vomits us from it, is there, like, do we get special mention at the Oscar ceremony somehow? Is there, like, how does this all work? That this big reality movie that we're surfing like it's structural sugar. How does this work? I just don't know. Am I SAG now? Am I a union actor now? Because have I done enough hours on camera? What if this is a movie, a reality movie, that we would rather watch than stop? What has happened to our souls if we don't have it in us to wake up? What does that mean? It means hope has been torn from us. It means we have been spat out by someone who shat us out and swallowed us again and spat us out. They don't care. We are experiencing betrayal trauma. Someone who would cheat the United States and who is deft at somehow instilling, through their lack of any conscience, the hope that they will show humanity that, of course, they're only awful and monstrous to monsters. They wouldn't hurt me. It's like Trump's magical thinking was what was happening with the magnetometers. It wasn't that he wanted the guns to shoot at anyone. It's just that everyone's on his side. So when he said, well, they're not here to hurt me, he meant, so they will hurt no one, for everyone loves me and all is well. What kind of batshit hell are we cracking out of here? We are in an abusive relationship. You are in an abusive relationship. Shocking boundary violations are one common grooming tactic of a narcissist or dark triad personality. If someone in your life points into a camera knowing you'll be looking at the view screen and pulls their finger like a trigger, looking into your eyes, saying, I could shoot someone in the street and not lose anyone, it is a good indicator of a bad situation. You are in an abusive relationship.
has leveraged and climbed upon a fog of
Who?
falsehood.
Who? Who?
Has donned
Who?
the falsehood.
Who?
Who
Who?
is
Who? Who?
the falsehood?
Who?
You are in an abusive relationship. Shocking boundary violations are one common grooming tactic of a narcissist or dark triad personality. If someone in your life points into a camera knowing you'll be looking at the view screen and pulls their finger like a trigger looking into your eyes saying, I could shoot someone in the street and not lose anyone, it is a good indicator of a bad situation. You are in an abusive relationship. Who has leveraged and climbed upon a fog of falsehood? Who has donned the falsehood? Who is the falsehood?
Why, yes, that is correct. And the mindness, after all, made me this way. It's not a bad thing, after all. It's kind of fresh, actually. Hello, 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 hello. It is the mystery font. This is the mindness. I am Tim Cameron. I am a host of the font. Good gray. Us. Good gray. Shush. Good gracious. Good gracious. When I do radio science brain, I'm thinking about the potential of the mind. I'm thinking about what I understand of humankind. I'm thinking about what we have yet to find. I'm thinking about how new under the sun is real. And just because we may be recombining doesn't mean we're not making things that are new, or at least new enough to us that we should be elative and celebrant. We should be the renovation of love's imagination, maybe a bit more resonant. And if we didn't punish ourselves relentlessly, it might be easier to give ourselves that kind of present. So I submit to thee, sweet fountain, there of fair mystery. Good gray us, good gray us, good gray us. It is with fonted breath that I offer radio, science, brain. It is fun. It is also, well, about to happen. It is also waiting. Always. It's always happening. I think that maybe everything we've ever thought of is happening. Or maybe it's just me. I think that we give ourselves assignments, and maybe we don't keep all of them going, but I think that our brain is want to give us the readout if a calculation takes some time, you know, in a year or 30 or 300, our brain is going to ask us to come back to the chair where we can be in the dark or give our readout focus and hear the answer, or hear at least the readout. And radio science brain is something like that too. I think that artists are canaries, and we all are, but certainly artists have that role and duty, and I'm down. I am gifted with part of sentinel intelligence, and I can help with that. It doesn't mean that I'm correct. It means that it feels to me like something that I have to offer, or have to get better at knowing where it goes, or how it helps, or how it helps me. But I process the world around me in rather a scouring and total tessellating way. And it takes a lot of time sometimes to process and assimilate understanding that has the depth of what I'm casting into and how my brain casts into reality. And thus, something like radio science brain kind of, maybe sort of, was going to happen. It was just going to happen because how would it not? I'm turning up the volume a little bit so I can be heard more easily requisite. I think that's fairly exquisite. I think we're on it. I think we are Ope Intuit. When do you remember first spending time noticing the word intuition? Discuss amongst yourself. Radio science brain is different every time, and I'm about to find it in my mind. I'm about to find it, and I'm about to find a backing track that will play with it. I recently made a new track, and while I won't utilize it now, it's shorter, a little more brief, and maybe will be woven into a more permanent theme song sort of aspect for the font. It's just a thought. Because this, after all, is a reality distortion field, and so the falsehood theme, which speaks of reality distortion fielding, makes sense as a theme, and yet so does radio science brain. And it happens, and it begins like that, this particular backing track, and I'm going to play the end of the track as I get coffee. There, coffee. Yes, this is the way the track ends. And this is the most recent version that I've used very often with this backing track music. And now we're going to utilize this. This is radio science brain. Limina radiate, limina radiate, my maid, disabled candidate. The main ace I would not connect with, but maybe game to play with today. I found out I'm one of my own kind, and I found I could find permission to know my mind. Imagination conspire to guide my eyes, my attention, my finding patternicity, my perspicacity. This might be a game or a name I can actually be ache within and begin to cave in hate, begin to emancipate. This is the mindless made love contain, contagious aim. Radio science, brain, imagination may begin to play, might maybe game to play, might maybe game to play today. Imagination may contain radio science, brain, innate, relate, mind made, might have capably aided. If I'd been asked, I'd say. The tech can conspire to spin, and I'll find rotation within. Again, this contagion will remain in all ways. Might maybe game to play today. Maybe capable ace. The same as play. This place, radio science, brain, mind made. This contagious mastery able to stable my own brain. Radio science, brain, emancipate, create, might make, disable, ace, be named, might maybe gain. Radio science, brain, might make, disable, ace, have the aim to play, not to place, but to reign. Some seance to betray how pain can maintain. Radio science, brain, emancipate, create, might make, disable, ace, connect to project, to the rain, from all brains to all brains, emancipate, create, emancipate. Contagious
Radio silence break, 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 radio silence break. Imagination contains gray arrays, liaison, my take on your wave today. Well, it's fun when I find out my mic is shut off halfway through something. Hopefully that wasn't super long, but it's what it is. Hello, this is Fonted. Now, this battery, I didn't have this plugged in appropriately, so this mic may go so tune, actually. May go so tune that it goes actually even too soon. This is what calibration recalibrates as when it finds itself again. You see? Coffee. Honey, that's great coffee. Welcome to the mystery font, newly restored. This is the mindness made me this way. Welcome to the collected fountain spectrum. Upon it, we are the haunted. And you see, fun is how we know we're onto something. That area, right there. I think it would make a lot of sense to try to break through with a full radio science brain right now. It just seems correct. I am an artist, I am an altruist, I am an autist. And we should all have ways we find flow. Play is good for the mind, though. And so, we should all find ways to play. If we're not able to play, I think we're experiencing simple atrophy and decay. And that will happen anyway, in some sense, won't it? Someday. Hope springs eternal if hope springs eternal. That is, if you are game to play, you may just find a game. You may just find a song. You may just find a poem that told you how the hour was perfectly long. It wasn't too short. It wasn't too lengthy. It just held strong. And finding words to talk about that might help make that so. Sometimes just feeling present and like we've made it through the moment without losing executive function is a lot. The mystery font is, to a large extent, about reestablishing executive function. After all, the forces of intolerance, purveyors of lynch mob brain syndrome like Marjorie Taylor Greene, tend to want us to abandon executive function and find ourselves in trigger space constantly, because all the better to swallow us. All the better to swallow us if we are not woke because we are in trigger space. If we don't remember that we have resources and friends and creativity and skills, and that we're good people, and that we have hope, that we have imagination.
that we can do anything. If we're terrified, we forget all kinds of those things. And we forget that we can get out of the room. We forget there's a window. We forget there's a way out. We forget there's not a room. We forget we're not subject to Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I beg of you, if it's not something that's happening, try to give yourself the gift of being alone in a room with your mind, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, because it will change drastically if you find a way to find a there and do it regularly. Just set a timer, and then you don't have to worry about, am I doing that part right? Is this long enough? Am I doing this right? Just let go. Set it for a minute or two longer than you need. And listen to the voice that you might otherwise drown with something. Listen to the voice that wants other people to listen to it, and make sure that you have ever listened to it, at least today. Because there's a there, and you will find executive function. If it's not something you're doing, it's worth discovering. And to whatever degree there's more to discover, there is always more to discover. If it's something you've misplaced but had found before, if it's something that you're afraid of, I understand that. I'm terrified of it, and it also helps me to survive. It helps me to thrive. It helps me to live. It helps me to make art. It helps me to process intentional malice and violence and wrongdoing around me, and see a way to be a part of trying to add good to the world and have hope. Because I've been able to have space to recover executive function. And the mystery font is truly special in terms of the tranquility that's here. And so whether artists visit here for a brief or somewhat lengthy residency, or just come to share a thought for 5 minutes, this open mic by appointment is open, and would ask to consult before session. But most generally, if you have something you'd like to share, then this may be a place to share it. And as long as it's respectful and kind and works in this space, then this is supposed to be a place for anyone and everyone who wants to share something. And so, at this point, the trickle is slow. I've had 3 artists here so far, and I'm now clear to start sharing the first of the release of the first guest artist. I'm thinking I'm going to finish an edit of the full episode before I release particles, but I'm very excited about it because the artist is amazing and they were phenomenal. All 3 artists who have been here so far, one of them twice, are remarkable and interesting and unique. And so, this place wants to foster our intuition, because I think through leaning into our intuition, along with our other aspects, we can foster emancipation, generally. And the reconstruction needs to be like fully restarted. We have all kinds of things that we do need to change. Maybe not overnight, but we have police reform. We have a habitat that is buckling in ways that are specific to the human race's survival, important to try to steward in some way before oceans collapse entirely. We have homework. We have love to administer now, and so we need to get neo-Nazis and thugs and white fire terrorists off of the neck of humanity so that we can process our American apartheid. It's just always been time to do it, and we apparently are the generation who is up to it. It's been a long time coming, but we can do this. We can handle the truth if we are willing to handle the truth. It's a very braggart cheerleader Donald Trump thing to say, to scream, you can't handle the truth. I can handle the truth. Knowing there's no willingness to do so. Certainly not when it counts. He's only willing to try to have any common ground so that we know what he means when it is instrumentally necessary for him. We have to break up with Donald Trump. This abusive relationship he has gotten me into and gotten you into is unacceptable. And there are better ways for us all to be connected than through a universal, one-on-one, terroristic, threatening, abusive relationship with Donald Trump. So say we all. And radio, science, brain. Is it Dewey? Is it Dewey? Why, yes. This is an arriving vector climbing nectar guide me, spectre of hope, guide me, light rope, imagination, no. Leslie told me, don't grope, don't bloviate, don't bloviate, recombine. is the mindness made me contain, activate, radio science, brain array, this ray, particle matter wave, mind made me brave, contain the ray, particle matter wave, like the substrate we gave. This is the mindness made, a new substrate to unmade. This is the mindness, celebrate. This is the mindness, celebrate. This is the mindness made. Begin, be not prey today, be play, be play, be not predators, prey, be play. Imagination aid, imagination aid, liaise. Anytime, any place, any day, any speck of your attention will race. Every way your mind embraces all takes. You might take, this is the mindless ache. This is the mindless break. Radio silence, break radio silence, break radio silence, break radio silence, break radio science, brain emancipate. Radiate, contain this contagion some way. Radio science brain, I made this so this moment would go this way. Particle matter wave, now like the things to save. Let's all be tidal wave, be nature, your creature would create. If the taste of permission were in your house, sumptuous in your mouth, something in the sprouts, in that soup or that spout. You're out, or you're in, or you're now, or you're bound. Radio science, kindness, compound. You're not bound to anything but the band you're with. It's a consensual knit that can be undone and done again. Intuit. This is the banding sentience remainder substratory, updated every day. Mindless made this, the mindless made imagination aid into activation agent. Imagination aid, mind made into aid. Pretend that kindness came and stayed. Pretend that love is sane and made. Pretend that kindness came and stayed. Radio science brain, mind made. This is the science came in case. Radio science brain were germane. You see, the mindness is always germane. The mindness is always germane. mindness is always germane. If we are going to be present to it, it will be present for us. So say this one. So says I. So say I. So says me. I for one. And I'm here as a ubiety. I'm just one person in one place, and yet we're linked, we are, an omnibus, ubiquitous through space and time, in fact. This race, sentience illuminate. We're the Intuit freight, the mindness made us, this collate. This raid across all frames of sentience and all mentions, all extensions, radio, science, brain. What is our relationship to falsehood? Isn't it changing? Are we getting better at perceiving it around us? Or are we being led to believe that it's not really that important, or that we are helpless and so should simply submit and be glad for when we're not under attack? Are we looking? Are we going to see something in order that we might say something if we should see it? Are we aware? I'm calling New Colossus. I'm calling us to dare. Predators want us to not be woke, because being aware enough to treat our neighbors and ourselves with love and justice and dignity would allow us to establish relationships and commonalities and common language that a competitive and capitalistic, terroristically anti-need, anti-humanity capitalism, this system, until we change it, demands people in dungeons. It demands losers. It demands people absorb massive amounts of inhuman cruelty, ostracism, and punishment. And we can shift it at any time. It's literally just abominable terror that we put upon ourselves and one another. I'm calling on New Colossus. Emma Lazarus wrote it, that poem, some time before the statue came to stand there. But it was for, I believe, raising money for the pedestal for the statue to come. There was intention there. But this was not exactly in the same way that we think of it today about a statue for immigrants. This was a statue about immigrants, but it was a statue about enslavement and involuntary immigrants and immigrants experiencing genocide from colonialism. Enslavement and
My people are so smart. And you know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters. So
yes, with that kind of worldview and that kind of sudden intrusion, that indeed liberty, when liberty was stood atop the pedestal and complete when there was an opening ceremony. That celebration and the statue was meant to memorialize and celebrate emancipation. The Statue of Liberty is about the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery, the end of enslavement. It's about a celebration of Lincoln and the emancipation. And therefore, we've really hidden the stalling of Jim Crow under an important part of the history, and that's the role of Ellis Island and the statue in bringing people to America. The Liberty Island, I'm not sure how it all plays in, but there is relation to immigration really quite directly related to and coming through essentially the statue. Coming to the statue to go through. And yet, to say, the statue really probably should have been of an African American or indigenous woman. And there were indeed protests to that very point in the day, because it was a woman walking out of chains of slavery, but looked very, very much like a white woman. But Liberty's walking, and she's constantly in motion. She is constantly leaving slavery. We are the reality distortion fielding. And fortunately, we had our mic at least charging this time correctly, so we can thus at least come back from another mic out there for a moment. It's a fairly casual night, it seems. Morning. It's just about 4 in the morning now. And yes, executive function definitely involves upkeep. It involves also that you are at the mystery font, and that at times you will find a camera obscura for hours. At times you will find me singing with alacrity for hours. Sometimes you'll find 5 minutes of a photograph. At times it's an open studio. At times it's meandering and loose improvisation, and at times it is the gravity of our solar system. Knit and tense and relieving. The mystery font can be just about anything. It's a reality distortion field like any theater. And I'm excited to share footage, as I mentioned, of guest artists who have started to come and be recorded here, and to continue building the falsehood, which will show in a live production, likely solo or maybe 2-person version in the next few months, and a larger expanded cast of about 5 to 7 people in the summer and fall. The falsehood looks at our ability to perceive falsehood, looks at our ability to know and take account of our intuition that tells us that, for instance, the question with Donald Trump is essentially whether he is disqualified by total incompetence or disqualified by total volition, or if it's a cocktail somewhere between, which is the disqualifying cocktail. But anywhere along that spectrum, what happened on January 6th then led up to it for years, cultivated and created by him, was either so incompetent that democracy was suspended and nearly buckled, or so full of intention and crime against the United States that there was clear volition to sow harm in treason and sedition. So the question is Donald Trump competent, or does he have volition, or is it both? His ability to musical chairs himself out of anything does come now to the basic, very simple spectrum, in fact, simply vector, upon which he is to be judged. Because nowhere on this line allows a pathway back. And there's not really a possibility of anywhere else. How can we have been so deeply hoodwinked? We're experiencing betrayal trauma. And something about dealing with a person who does not have a conscience, or has it only to the extent that it is available as data, but without the loyalty or kindness or sense of human family that would keep him from using anything simply against others. We're dealing with a dangerous dark triad personality in Donald Trump. And it may not only be dementia that's causing degradation of what would be volition or causing greater incompetence, but this is the vector he is on. Who is the falsehood? The falsehood, in fact, may never know.